All right, let's dive right into The Bridge of Trust from Squid Game Season 2.
You provided some really detailed episode summaries for us, so
Yeah, we got a lot to work with here.
so
But really want to unpack what makes this episode so intense.
it's wild even for Squid Game.
Right.
And I think a lot of it has to do with trust or the lack thereof. And that's really, I think, what the writers are trying to get at here.
Even before we get to the game itself,
Yeah.
the episode starts with so much tension just building in the dormitory.
Yeah, there's a lot of paranoia going on in the dorm, right?
Absolutely.
It's a pressure cooker in there.
You've got Gi-hun. He's trying to figure out what's going on with these notes.
Right.
And meanwhile, Hye-jin is already like 10 steps ahead, just manipulating everyone around her.
She's playing chess, yeah, and everyone else is playing checkers.
It's fascinating to see those two approaches side by side.
Yeah, Gi-hun is still clinging to this idea of collaboration, trying to solve these clues as a group.
Right, he's got that team spirit.
But Hye-jin, she's completely ruthless. She sees trust as a weakness, something to be exploited.
I mean, can you blame her? It's a kill or be killed situation.
Well, that's the question the episode is forcing us to ask, isn't it? Is this just pure pragmatism, or is it something darker?
Then you've got the game itself, this terrifying glass bridge. It's literally a leap of faith with every step.
Yeah, the way the bridge is designed with those alternating glass tiles.
One wrong step and you're gone.
Exactly. It's such a brilliant visual metaphor for the risks they're taking, having to trust someone with your life.
And the time limit, it just adds to that pressure.
Oh, absolutely. Every second counts.
It makes you wonder, how do you even begin to think clearly in a situation like that?
Right. You're relying on instinct, gut feeling, and hoping that the person in front of you knows what they're doing.
And then we get that moment with Hye-jin and Jin-woo.
Oh, man.
She basically sends him to his death,
She plays him like a fiddle.
knowing full well what's going to happen.
Her line, trust is a weapon, that sums up her whole philosophy, doesn't it?
It's chilling. It's cold.
But also kind of brilliant in a twisted way.
Yeah, you have to admire her strategic thinking, even if her methods are, well, morally questionable.
But then, right after that, we see Gi-hun risking everything to save Sumin.
Totally different approach.
Right. It's like a direct contrast to Hye-jin's manipulation.
He puts his own life on the line, not for any strategic advantage, but just because he feels it's the right thing to do.
And that goes back to his whole thing about not losing his humanity.
Right. His belief that even in this horrific situation, there's a line he won't cross.
He's trying to hold on to some kind of moral compass, even when it feels like everything is spinning out of control.
It's a powerful statement, but it also raises questions. I mean, is it truly altruism, or is it a way to maintain his own sense of self, his idea of who he is?
It's a plex, isn't it? The show doesn't give you easy answers. No, it really makes you think about the motivations behind these choices, what drives people to act the way they do when the stakes are so high.
And then you've got Rami, who starts out trying to take advantage of Mr. Park, but ends up helping him.
His character arc in this episode is really interesting, right? He goes from this selfish, every man for himself mentality to actually showing compassion.
He even says something about survival, maybe being about being human.
It makes you wonder, is he starting to see the bigger picture? Is he realizing that there's more to surviving this than just looking out for number one?
It's a glimmer of hope in a pretty dark episode.
Right. Or is it setting him up for a fall? Can you really afford to be compassionate in a game like this? It really makes you wonder if any of their choices even matter,
Right, like if there's this whole other level of control going on behind the scenes.
It's almost like they're puppets.
Yeah, and that note Gi-hun finds under his pillow, the strongest alliances will crumble.
Like a threat, almost.
Yeah, it's definitely meant to keep them on edge, constantly looking over their shoulders.
The episode just keeps the tension so high the entire time.
Like, even after they survive the bridge.
You can see the toll it's taken.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially on Sumin, she completely breaks down.
It's a reminder that these games aren't just physically dangerous, it's the psychological impact, too.
Right, the trauma they're enduring, the constant fear, the distrust.
And the fact that they get no time to process any of it.
Exactly, they're just thrown from one horrifying situation to the next.
1 minute they're watching people fall to their deaths, the next they're back in the game.
There's no reprieve.
It's relentless.
And I think that's intentional, right? The show is trying to put us in their shoes, make us feel that same sense of pressure and uncertainty.
It really makes you think, how would I react in that situation?
Would you stick to your morals like Gi-hun, or become more pragmatic?
Like Hye-jin.
Would you be willing to sacrifice everything for your own survival?
It's easy to judge from the outside looking in, but
But when you're in the thick of it, Who knows how you'd really behave?
And that's what makes Squid Game so brilliant, right? It forces us to confront these difficult questions about human nature.
There are no easy answers, no clear-cut heroes or
It's
villains.
all shades of gray.
Exactly. It's a reflection of the complexities of real life.
So I think as we're talking about all this, it's important to remember that the bridge of trust isn't just about this one game.
It's about the bigger picture, the systems that create these kinds of situations.
Right, like how often do we find ourselves in situations where we have to trust someone, even when it feels risky?
Or where we have to make difficult choices with potentially devastating consequences.
And then there's that element of manipulation, like with the shadowy figure in the notes.
Who's really pulling the strings? Are we ever truly in control of our own lives?
It's an unsettling thought, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's part of what makes the show so powerful. It taps into these anxieties we all have about the world we live in.
So is there any hope? Is the show ultimately pessimistic about human nature?
Well, I wouldn't say it's completely hopeless. There are moments of genuine connection, like with Gi-hun and Sumin.
Yeah, those moments are important.
And even Rami, his change of heart suggests that people can evolve, they can choose a different path.
Even in a situation as dire as this,
I think what the show is trying to say is that even in the face of unimaginable horror,
there's still a spark of humanity.
that even when surrounded by darkness, there's still a chance for compassion and connection.
And I think that's what keeps us watching, right?
Yeah.
We want to believe that ultimately good can triumph over evil.
That human connection can prevail even in the face of overwhelming odds.
So as you continue watching Squid Game, and particularly as you move on from the bridge of trust,
Keep those moments of hope in mind.
because they're the key and understand what the show is really about.
It's not just a violent spectacle, it's a story about human resilience.
About the choices we make when faced with impossible odds.
And about the enduring power of empathy, even in the darkest of times.
What really got to you in this episode?
You know, it's hard to pick just one thing. This episode hits you from so many angles.
Yeah.
You've got the intense action with the bridge, the whole trust and betrayal thing going on underneath it. And then on top of that, you've got this whole other layer of mystery, like we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg.
It really does feel like a microcosm of the whole show.
Yeah, it packs in all the big themes and leaves you thinking about them long after it's over.
I think that's why people keep coming back to Squid Game.
Yeah, it's not just entertainment, it gets under your skin.
Makes you think about the world, about yourself.
It's like looking in a mirror, but a really messed up one.
Right. And the bridge of trust, it really highlights this question about human nature.
Yeah, like, are these characters inherently good or bad, or are they just products of their environment?
I mean, could any of us, put in the same situation, become like Hye-jin?
That's the scary part, right? It makes you question your own morals.
It's uncomfortable, but I think the show is trying to force us to confront that.
If we look at the bigger picture, those systems of control and manipulation,
Yeah.
they're not that far removed from our own lives.
We've all felt that pressure to succeed, that competition.
The fear of falling behind.
And it's easy to lose sight of what really matters, to start seeing people as obstacles instead of human beings.
And that's when things get really dangerous, when we start dehumanizing each other.
So is there any hope? Is it possible to hold on to our humanity in a world that often feels designed to crush it?
I think that's the central question the show is wrestling with.
And I'm not sure there's a clear-cut answer.
But I do think there are moments of hope in The Bridge of Trust.
Like when Gi-hun saves Sumin.
Yeah, or when Rami shows compassion for Mr. Park.
Those moments suggest that even in the darkest of circumstances, there's still a flicker of good inside us.
And I think that's what we need to hold on to, that belief in human connection.
Because without that, what's left?
It's a bleak thought.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I just want to say,
Keep those moments of hope in mind.
as you continue watching,
Squid Game can be a tough show to watch, but it's also deeply rewarding.
it's not just entertainment, it's a challenge.
A challenge to look at ourselves and the world around us with a critical eye.
And to never give up hope, even when things seem bleak.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.